This is Between the Brackets, a MediaWiki podcast, episode 73, November 10th, 2020. Welcome to Between the Brackets. I'm Yaron Koren, and my guest is Laurent Alquier, whom I've known for over 10 years now. He is a manager in the Emerging Technologies Partnerships team at Johnson & Johnson Technology Services. Johnson & Johnson have been using MediaWiki and the Semantic MediaWiki extension specifically for a long time, and I think Laurent was instrumental in making that happen. He's also one of the only people I know who's using true semantic web stuff, triple stores and all the rest, within a company. Let me know before we start that any opinions that Laurent may express are his own and do not necessarily reflect those of Johnson & Johnson. Anyway, Laurent, it's great to talk to you again, and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I think I know the answer to this, but where do you live?
I live in central New Jersey, a little north of Princeton.
Yeah.
Closer to the Pennsylvania border.
Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, not far from where I live, actually, yeah. You're originally from France, though?
Yes, I've lived in the US for 21 years now.
Oh, okay. Which I guess that ties into my next question. I think that coincides roughly with when you joined Johnson & Johnson. So how did you end up at Johnson & Johnson?
I moved over here to the US shortly after my PhD and got married and started looking for a job in the area. And my wife happened to work at Johnson & Johnson, and she saw in a completely different area. At the time she was a chemist, and she saw an opening while I was searching for a job in the area. She saw an opening, and I applied and got in.
Oh, okay, cool. What did you get your PhD in?
It was a PhD in computer image analysis, pattern recognition. So basically, it was working on a new method to identify regular objects in pictures, like roads in satellite images or follow veins in an angiogram. So whenever you have a smooth, regular structure, find better ways to track them in a picture without prior knowledge about the picture.
Okay, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, that's become a big hot topic. Well, I guess it's been a hot topic for a long time. But were you doing anything like that when you first started at Johnson & Johnson?
Not really. I joined Johnson & Johnson to work on more less glamorous topics. It was more website development, database development. Actually, a lot of the things that I initially started with in Johnson & Johnson were a lot of things that I've had developed on the side while I was doing graduate studies. So I was. The web had just started. I was a webmaster of the campus there. I set up the website.
Yeah, okay.
I managed it, relationship with people and on, and that helped me get started here. But I worked more practically on knowledge management, scientific applications, accessing databases to allow queries to present the information in different ways. And that topic has taken different forms, but has followed me for the last 20 years.
Yeah, sure. Before we get to that, I'm guessing most people listening to this have heard of Johnson & Johnson, but for people who don't know, what do they do? And
so we are.
I know it's a broad. Answer.
Yeah, but actually, it can be surprising because you can get different answers. Johnson & Johnson is a global, worldwide corporation. It's made of multiple smaller companies, and really broken down into three major sectors. You have a pharmaceutical sector that developing drugs for things against AIDS, for example, or tuberculosis, psoriasis, that kind of thing. We have a medical device sector where we work on surgical equipment, implants, hip replacement, knee replacement, surgical robots.
Wow.
That's something we do as well. And the third branch is consumer products. So we there you have things like cosmetics, baby products. So Johnson & Johnson is primarily known through a Band-Aid or brands like Band-Aid or baby products, but it's way more than that. And for many years, a lot of that was in the background. So the different companies operate as different brands, and it's not always obvious that they are all part of the same ecosystem. And that has been changing lately. Things have been more visible.
Oh, okay. You mean this? Oh, wait. What do you mean more visible?
It has been easier to show that all these brands are part of Johnson & Johnson. For a long time, it was more the emphasis was more on the brands themselves and less on the Johnson & Johnson thread across them. Now it's been more visible.
Oh, okay. And you work at a subsidiary?
So for many years, for the major part of my my time at Johnson & Johnson, I've been working in the pharmaceutical business, but on the IT side. So building applications that help scientists query a database about scientific tests and that kind of thing. And for the past few years, I've moved to the enterprise IT level. So there's like a fourth sector that links that goes across all of the three sectors that I explained before.
Right.
That are about global services. So you have an IT global services, you have an HR global service, you have different services like that. We have health and wellness, but IT goes across, and I've been working in enterprise architecture of capacity first, and now more often innovation and emerging technologies.
Yeah, cool. That makes sense. So that means your group is theoretically involved in doing IT stuff for, all however many people, 100,000 employees or whatever it is at Johnson & Johnson.
Yes. So we are, our particular group is, we are a small team, and we are dedicated at looking at helping make sense of emerging technologies. Not just experimenting ourselves, but also helping other people catalog experiments, look at trends, look at what's coming, what's new, what other people are doing in the enterprise, so that we can help each other and not either repeat the same things or just work in silos. So we're trying to break those silos. Yeah.
Oh, well, that certainly relates to what we're going to talk about, I think. But so how did you start using MediaWiki there? So for several years, I've worked on developing. We were in a support role, so we had to provide answers about our own applications, our own environment, servers, databases. And so we had to keep track of all that. And for many years, it was done the hard way, using Excel, every time somebody asked you, so which databases do you have? Or we have a problem with this database. Is that one of yours? It was very difficult to figure out, is it one of ours? Who knows about that? So. Right.
for several years, I created a knowledge base to help us catalog all that. But it was a very difficult application to keep evolving. It was very rigid. It was done on top of Oracle database and very rigid schema. So after a while, it became very hard, and I was looking for alternatives. And I do a lot of gaming on the side, and I realized that most of the gaming wikis, where you go to find more information about different games, they were all using MediaWiki at the time. That was even before things like Wikia or whatever the name is right now. And so I gave it a try. I set up. I found a way. I had some servers, so I set it up, and around that time, when I was starting to look at it more closely, I found out about the Semantic MediaWiki extension. Not long after that, Semantic Forms came out, which made things a lot easier, and that gave me what I've been looking for all that time: a flexible, really free-form database to play with. So I've been using it ever since to in different domains to do just that, to very easily catalog things in a very flexible way without a very hard set schema.
Yeah. So that must have been right when Semantic MediaWiki got its start, and what was then known as Semantic Forms, and so 2006, 2007, around then.
That's when I started looking at it. The wiki that I set up at the time is still in function. It went through several revisions, but the original wiki that I worked on is still running. And it has evolved into sort of I try to sell it as a Wikipedia for J&J. So anything you can think of, we can easily create a page about them. So organizations, people, tools, websites, all linked to each other. And so that was the first one that I worked on, and I'm still working on the side, but it's not going strong. It's been hard to find to develop a community around it. But
I was gonna ask,
But it's been growing.
So it started out as just a way to store information internally for the IT department, and then it became at some point you just started adding actual company-related information.
Yeah, the way it went is if you look at servers and databases, these are connected to organizations who own them, and those organizations are connected to companies. And very soon you start branching out to a lot of things that are beyond the initial scope, and that are needed to help. Like, for example, those companies and organizations are located in geographic areas. So I added a whole structure to catalog states, cities, countries, and provide a way to link that back to the rest. So now I have a map of all the J&J locations in the world contained in that system.
Yeah. So it's interesting. How come? Why hasn't it caught on more to the extent that it hasn't caught on? I mean, are there other data sources for that same information now, or something, or people just not interested in contributing to it?
It's difficult. I found a wiki in the context of an enterprise wiki has different rules or different behaviors than a public wiki. People are generally busy. They don't want to spend a lot of time documenting things. So you only find people who are really enthusiastic about a particular topic that will go out of their way to spend more time documenting them. I try to set things up to be extremely quick to capture, so that when I go and add new things, it doesn't take me a lot of time. Over time, I've seen waves of people coming in, spending some time adding more pages, and then get busy and never coming back. So it's been coming and going, but not at the level of building a whole community around it. That takes a lot of effort. It takes a team of community organizers and to really grow it at that level. And that's not something I have for this particular wiki. That's not something I have.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, how official is this wiki? Is this the wiki that's called KnowIt or KnowIt?
That was the original name. Now
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Now I've been rebranding it as about.jnj.com because it creates pages about anything. So that's an easy shortcut. So that way you can do something like you can look for a page about.jnj.com/New Jersey, and that brings you a page about New Jersey with a list of all the locations in JNJ in New Jersey that you can then drill down and explore. We use maps. We use several extensions for that. So it's an easy shortcut.
Yeah, I mean that sounds official indeed. If you manage to get about.jnj.com, that whole subdomain.
Oh, we have a simplified procedure for internal domains. That domain is not accessible externally. So internally we have some flexibility. We can create domain names fairly quickly. It's been very streamlined. So if nobody is using it, it's fair game. We can pick it up and apply it.
Okay.
But it hasn't been. It's not official launch from the top with corporate communications and all of that structure around it. It's been grown from the grassroots. It's a grassroots effort.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not. It has been sponsored. All the managers that I've worked with have known about it. They have endorsed it, supported it. They've supported me in taking the extra time to work on it. So I've been very grateful that we've had that flexibility to work on side project like that, and they helped me make room for that.
Yeah. Okay. So there's never been an attempt to replace it from the top with something more official, quote unquote, or whatever, more expensive or whatever it is.
Not yet. If that happens, we'll see what happens. I'm not too concerned about it because typically those more official efforts are a lot more focused in scope. They are very rarely about capturing everything. What I'm doing here is very wide open, so there's no limitation on what you can put there. I mean, there's some limitations in terms of we have internal policies on what you can put on network, but beyond that, typically those efforts are focus on a particular area or particular domain or particular sector. So I'm not too concerned about that. I would welcome that, actually, that kind of official effort. If there was one, I would welcome it as another source of information to pull from to keep building on this one.
Okay. I guess it depends on how it's done. If it's complementing the wiki or meant to replace the wiki, but clearly it would be hard to replace the wiki.
That's something I found is very good with this type of system, with the semantic wiki, is that even if, and I've seen that, if I build a series of pages, in the wiki because they don't exist anywhere. So that's my version of those pages. If those pages suddenly exist somewhere else, I can work with them to have them be the source, be the reference, and find ways to import their version into the wiki and keep running it. But instead of having to maintain it inside the wiki, I just import the data externally. That works very well.
Yeah, that's another great strength of MediaWiki plus some of these extensions is that it can serve as an integration hub. So even if there's very little data stored on the wiki, it can be quite useful just in terms of having one place where you can view this and all this information from different silos or whatever you want to call them.
And the capacity for bots and automation is a big plus.
For what?
The capacity for scripting and bots.
Bots, yeah,
and
sure,
automation. If you look at other wiki platforms, they are really text-based. They may or may not have APIs, and the interaction is very different than what has been developed for MediaWiki.
Yeah. Have you found yourself writing a lot of bots over the years?
I've tried a few times. The biggest one we developed, and I go back to tweak it from time to time, is a bot that checks for broken links. That's a big,
that's interesting.
That's a big issue.
Yeah.
Things get stale, and it's very good. And that's something I'm not seeing in other platforms. If you look at things like Confluence or SharePoint, having an automatic way to flag bad links across all the pages that's very beneficial to have that in a wiki.
Yeah, it's the core MediaWiki has something for that too. No, it's just a page of wanted pages or something. I can't.
No, the wanted pages are for red links.
Right.
So that shows you.
Oh, you're talking about. Okay,
You're talking
about
broken links. So
broken external links.
Blue links that don't go anywhere.
Yeah, the different shade of blue for external URLs. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's for yeah.
But there's a few.
No.
I've been thinking about it. There's a few concepts in MediaWiki that are extremely useful that don't exist anywhere else, like those red links. The concept of red links, of placeholders that are easily clickable to create a new page. Redirects. Creating redirections between pages, that's hugely, especially in an environment where we like to give multiple names to the same thing. I have a lot of redirects in the system to do things like J&J, Johnson and Johnson, Johnson and Johnson with an ampersand instead of an and. All of that are different spellings that make things easier to find if you add them as redirects.
Yeah, and from what I understand, as soon as you get into the pharmaceuticals and anything bio-related, the number of different terms it becomes exponentially large.
Yes. There's a lot of you have external IDs to different databases and. So I've been playing with namespaces and even with external ontologies. We have I've added some mappings to external ontologies in the system.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. Is any of that found in the About Wiki, or is this a different wiki or set of wikis? All the
so that's still
ontology stuff.
That's still in the About one, but
oh really? Okay.
Since then. We've developed another wiki more for the IT side of things. So it's a wiki about. We have technology roadmaps. We have standards, services. The description of that is it's more technology driven and more for IT specialists than general purpose users. And I've been working on another one where we catalog all the sources of the data sources across Johnson Johnson and how they are connected to each other. So we have hundreds of data sources, data repositories, and we need to know where they are and how they connect to each other to build that kind of mapping. And the last one we've worked on, and this one is not using MediaWiki, it's using a different system, but what we're using it for afterwards, extracting data into a knowledge graph. All of these create different knowledge graphs, and I'm really looking at how we capture that information about connected element, and that one is about technologies and technology trends in our system.
So as far as MediaWiki based wikis, you have 3 of them?
We have 3, maybe 4. 3 right now.
Yeah, okay.
But I know of other MediaWikis instances in Johnson Johnson. I've seen 2 kinds. There's a couple of teams that have set up their own wiki, and since we moved to the cloud for a lot of infrastructure, that has made things easier. So if you have a technical team or technical part of your team, we can experiment more with setting up our own server and trying different technologies. So some teams have used MediaWiki for that, and I've seen MediaWiki as part of products for the help side of products. So there's a few platforms that were deployed that have a MediaWiki used as a small instance for FAQs and information about the product.
Oh, okay. Wait. So are some of those public wikis?
No. These are.
They're all still internal.
It's still internal. It's basically they provide the documentation about the platform in a micro MediaWiki instance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I don't know what, and you more or less run all of them. I mean, you're sort of the main admin.
For those top 3 that I talked about, yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time maintaining it. That's something. That's one. The time it takes to maintain a MediaWiki instance, that's something high up in my list of things I'd like to change about the platform at some point, if I could.
Really, that's interesting. It just takes too much of your time to deal with. What are the issues?
Oh, it's a conflict between different versions and making sure extensions work well with each other and. Just keeping up with the different version. Every time a new version of MediaWiki comes up, we have to test all of the extensions to make sure they still work. Upgrade all the extensions if they need to be upgraded. Same thing with Semantic MediaWiki. When something comes in, sometimes you have breaking changes. We have to go back and fix that. So it's been a struggle to keep up with staying on top of all those versions changes.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I guess at some point you could change to more of a wiki farm system where it's one set of software running all the wikis. But anyway, there's different ways to deal with that. That's too bad. I want to talk about semantic web stuff and all of that. Is that in use on all of the wikis, or is there one that's really the big user of that kind of thing?
No, it's used on all of the ones that we maintain, because even back in 2008 when I first set up the initial instance, I've always had in mind, and if I go back to slides that I used at the time, I still had there network diagrams of entities, and an early goal for this type of wiki was to to create a more dynamic version of something typically would do in PowerPoint or Visio, which is draw a diagram of how things are connected to each other, and then display those diagrams on demand. So the goal of using network visualizations was there from the beginning. So that was the big driver to use RDF to do more complex queries than what the Ask queries can do, and from there, so I've been using RDF for a while with Sparkle to do some of that, and then more lately I've been using graph databases like Neo4j to do other type of queries and visualizations.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, it might be going above some people's heads, and I confess this is sort of the limit of my understanding of all this too. But basically, Semantic MediaWiki lets you store its data either in a regular database, which is like MySQL, which is what most people do, but it also lets you store it in a triple store, quote unquote. I guess Neo4j is an example of that.
Well, Neo4j, I'd like to see a connector to Neo4j as a storage.
Okay. It doesn't. Okay.
Neo4j is not. It's yet another storage. So basically, triple stores are catalogs of triples. So subject, object, predicate. So this thing is related
it's like
to that
one
thing.
big table with 3 columns, sort of.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. Everything is expressed as triples. A property graph or a graph database like Neo4j is a property graph, and that's an intermediate structure. It's if you want it represents things in two types of entities. You have nodes and you have edges. Nodes can have attributes. Edges can have attributes. And so I found it a more intuitive way of working with this type of relationships, because you can be sure that when you look at an entity, you have everything you need to know about it. And then when you look at how it's connected to another entity, everything you need to know about that connection is in one place, and so on. So it's an intermediate structure. I find it very practical to work with, but in reality, I use both. I use both representations for what they're good for.
Okay. What triple store are you using, by the way?
We've tried a few over time, but right now we're using Virtuoso.
Okay, cool. I can't remember which one Wikidata uses. I don't think it's. I want to say Top Braid or something, but I could be wrong about that.
I like Virtuoso because it's a quad store. It's a graph and triple store. So the triples are grouped into different graphs, and you can run multiple wikis, each with their own graph on the same server, and then you can run queries across those graphs in a single shot. So I can have my wiki about databases in one graph, the wiki about everything else in another graph, the IT wiki in another graph, but they're all on the same server, and I can do queries across them.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. I was wondering about that. If there's more than one data source going into a triple store, how do you avoid collisions or whatever it is? But I guess the graph is sort of like a namespace or something, or whatever you want to call it.
Basically, that's one way of looking at it. Yeah.
Okay, so is any other so there's data from these 3 wikis going into this one triple store. Are there any other sources of data for that triple store?
Yes, so I that's something I'd like to develop more and make it more robust. But right now, we have also, for example, we can have a graph with locally generated list of aliases, for example, synonyms. So different names for the same thing. That's something. Another team developed a list of synonyms of like different names for J&J companies, for example, or different names for different countries. That's a source that can be packaged and added to the graph so that we can query across that as well. That's a nice way to augment the graph with other sources without having to maintain them in a wiki.
Yeah, okay, right, yeah. So, I was saying before, the MediaWiki is an integration hub, but a triple store can also sort of be an integration hub. So then, I guess at that point you can either include there are two approaches. You can either send the data into a wiki using, I guess, the external data extension or something, and then store it semantically there. Or you can just go put it straight into the triple store and cut out the middleman of MediaWiki. Do you ever have to choose between those?
I have a very good example. If you look at, we try to capture information about drugs, disease, like you were saying, the chemistry and biology aspect. And when you start looking at that, you can get, if you try to store everything in the wiki, you can get pages with literally thousands of properties. So you can have hundreds of relationships stored in a single page. That makes the wiki pages very long. And it can take a while to process. It can cause issues when you run internal processes like run jobs or you rebuild the wiki. I've hit some hard limits there of pages that were so big that it made those jobs fail. We had to trim them down. So when you hit those limits, when your wiki pages becomes too big, it helps to have a way to remove what is not going to be edited routinely, move that into a hard-coded a graph that you just load when needed, and then keep the wiki more simple.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I guess at that point it would be, even if it were technically possible, it might not be that useful to just store this massive amount of text on any one page. It's not something that people can really process.
And most of those annotations were silent anyway. They were in the background. They were not even displayed in the page.
Oh, okay.
So if they're not going to be displayed, you might as well store them directly into the graph. That's one thing that I found. I understand the reason for it, of having the page be the central point to store all the properties. But that's something I wish there was some flexibility about, because I've run into several situations where it would make sense to create a page of mappings between properties across multiple pages, instead of having them stored on each individual page. I don't know if I'm making that clear, but sometimes it makes sense to want to create annotations as triples elsewhere in the wiki than on the pages where those subjects are the pages.
Yeah, sure, and you can have subpages and that kind of thing. It depends on a bunch of factors.
Subpages are very good examples. We have a case where some of the forms were getting way out of hand. They were too complicated, or the templates were too complicated. So we broke them up into subpages to make them easier. But then, in order to keep the annotations for the top page, because we want them expressed at the top page, we have them in the subpage for convenience, But if we put the annotations there, the topic of the annotation, the subject of the annotation becomes the subpage.
Sure.
So
yeah.
You have to keep promoting those properties from the subpage into the top page, and it becomes convoluted. So it would be nice to be able to say, I'm on a subpage of this top page here. This annotation is about the top page. It's not about the subpage.
Yes. Right.
That would be nice too.
This brings me back to a lot of conversations on the Semantic MediaWiki mailing list 10 years ago or so. A lot of people asking about this thing. It's kind of thing. Can a page express information about another page? And some people even created extensions or whatever to let you do that. So what is the solution in your case? You let the triple store do it, store the information correctly.
When in our case, the solution was to just do between the subpage and the top page. You can keep track of the root of the subpage fairly easily. So we have a bunch of queries we use the set function with a semantic query to fill in the value from the subpage, if you want.
I see.
So
okay. Yeah, it's kind of
works.
Sure,
it works,
right.
But then you have refresh issues. You have cache issues. It doesn't always propagate in a convenient time frame. Sometimes you have to do refresh. So it has some quirks, but it's doable.
Okay, yeah. I feel obligated to mention the cargo extension. With cargo, it's I think a more straightforward way to do that, because you're not actually storing information about the page you're on, so you can add to whatever table it is from any page you're on. Anyway, that's a whole separate discussion, of course. So one really interesting aspect to your use of the semantic web is from what I understand, you use it to improve search. I guess both within the wiki and outside of the wiki. I'm not sure about that part.
So a lot of what I'm doing is about the general idea of findability, making things easier to find, and you have different ways to look about it. But one way I liked and came from a book by Peter Morville about findability.
Yeah, right.
I like that idea of making multiple ways of searching work together. So you may want to search for something using a keyword like on a Google search, but you may also want to browse. If you have a more in a catalog way, if you kind of know what you're looking for, but you want to look at what the other options are, so you want to browse. If you want to do something very specific, you want to query. Sometimes you don't know a general answer, but you want to ask someone like a Q&A, and you have another way of where you want to create a subscription. Say, I'm interested in this topic. Send me regularly news about that topic. And if you want to enable all those different ways of finding information into a single system, basing that system on Semantic MediaWiki and triple stores works fairly well. You can build. I mean, it's not out of the box. It requires some work, but you can build those different aspects. Like in a MediaWiki instance, you can search. With Semantic MediaWiki, you can create browse pages. You can create query pages. You have ways to do subscription with RSS. So you already have 4 out of 5 right there in a wiki. For the Q&A part, one way we've been trying to experiment with is using the wiki to generate question and answers for chatbots.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So typically for a chatbot, you have an exercise where manually you write down questions and you write down answers, and you have this whole list of question and answers that are known to the chatbot. Having those questions and answers captured in a wiki allow you to generate that on demand. So it makes it a lot easier.
Wow, that starts to get into artificial intelligence type stuff, no? Or is it not quite that sophisticated?
It's getting closer, but yeah.
I mean, is that the kind of thing that IBM Watson does? Analyzing information and then being able to answer questions based on that kind of thing.
I don't know much about the specific of how Watson works, but I know for the type of chatbots that we are engaged in, that's one application. I mean, we're not doing that a whole lot. That's just some ideas that we've been circulating.
Okay.
But the need is there to have an easier way to manage those question and answers, and I can see a big potential with MediaWiki, Semantic MediaWiki, generating those answers eventually.
Right. Yeah. So it's used in search. You use it to improve search within MediaWiki itself?
For search within MediaWiki, we've been using Elasticsearch for a while now.
Yeah. Okay.
So we set up the Elasticsearch, Elastica, and I forgot the other one. There are two extensions that work together, and
Cirrus Search.
Cirrus, yes, yeah, and those two they can be a little tricky to set up, but it's worth it. It makes the search result way more interesting than the out of the box search experience.
Yeah, but is the source for that that information just what's the text within the wiki, or is there triple store integration or anything else?
Right now it's just the text in a wiki, but again, by going to something like Elasticsearch, we could augment that Elasticsearch index by things from other places as well. So we could index other things on top of the index that's coming from MediaWiki. That's not something we have done yet, but that's a possibility. Yeah. And same thing, once it's in Elasticsearch, you can use the API of Elasticsearch to build applications. That's also not something we've done, but the possibility is there.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I thought there was some kind of search integration that you had done at Johnson & Johnson. Adding together information.
There was a system that was doing that in a more unified way, but it hasn't been used in a while. We had a conjunction of reduced resources on one end and ramping up of the Microsoft environment, Office Online, SharePoint Online on the other end. So a lot of what that system was used for is now being done in the Microsoft environment.
Oh no! Oh, that's that's the worst possible news. But
that's a reality. That's a reality of working in a large company.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You have to make sure.
For people who don't know about SharePoint, that's always the risk that that's the big competitor. How is SharePoint's search? It's been they've been making a lot of progress in. There's a whole search initiative in Microsoft to provide an enterprise version of their Bing platform. Okay.
So they've been making it as a unified search across all of the SharePoint environment, and that's becoming more and more semantic with the Microsoft graph behind the scenes. So I'm still looking to experiment with that graph and see if there are ways to make the two the wiki graph and the Microsoft graph work together.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, it seems like everyone's moving toward I don't know, the concept of graphs. Yeah, I mean, and I guess that some of the Elasticsearch itself, with some of the search, the open source search engines are incorporating parts of that too. I don't know.
But there's not a lot of. I don't think MediaWiki has a lot of to worry about from Microsoft yet, because there's, especially with the Semantic MediaWiki extension, you can create very data-driven wikis in ways that are very difficult still to do in SharePoint. It gets very convoluted. SharePoint has a very simple concept of lists. It's hard to link those lists together. You cannot create. You don't have that flexibility of forms and templates that you find in MediaWiki. So that's something that I've seen a lot, especially in that IT, the wiki for IT that we're managing. Initially, people use that wiki to build static pages about services. This is where you can find this application. This is how you request access. Blah blah blah. And
right.
Over time, that usage has declined and moved over to Confluence because people found Confluence was easier to format and to publish pages to make it's more it's more flexible to edit pages in Confluence than in MediaWiki. You don't have to learn the language, the annotation language. It's more point and click, and I'm fine with that because if you want to create static pages, go and use whatever SharePoint or whatever works for you. But for the data-driven side of it, creating form to capture data, to do queries and to show different visualizations out of that data, that's not something you can find anywhere else. That's still currently in MediaWiki with Semantic MediaWiki and page forms.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, I want to talk about a few things you brought up there. Are you using Visual Editor, by the way?
Not yet.
Okay.
I haven't even looked at it. I don't even know if it works well with page forms and semantic annotations.
Yeah, you might be surprised. Actually, I don't know how well it works with Semantic MediaWiki tags, but there is integration with page forms, on the page form side, not the visual editor side. But yeah, I mean, potentially that would all the people who are putting static content in Confluence might end up switching back once you have that working with. But it's interesting that 15 years later or whatever it is, there still doesn't seem to be really any other software that does what MediaWiki plus Semantic MediaWiki or plus Page Forms or Cargo, whatever it is, can do in terms of flexible data structures.
Yeah, we've been experimenting also with WordPress as a publishing platform. And you can do some data-driven with WordPress. You can create custom forms, but here again, you don't get the full experience that you get with MediaWiki. You can. It's harder to query. Every theme or extensions are doing things a little differently to store those. So it's a much more unified process in MediaWiki. And I've seen Drupal is starting to have some data-driven aspect as well, but I haven't looked. Somebody else in the organization has been working on Drupal for that, and I haven't seen how far they went with that.
I think in all those cases the data is separate from the text, the pages themselves. so you don't have that flexibility that you're actually dealing directly with text, which opens up a lot of options.
And that's a hugely important aspect of it, is the exceptions. We found that if you think of the ideal form, a page form that will cover every possible use case, there will be always one page that will have a need that is not in the page form, that will have a need for a local annotation to do an exception to what the page form. So typically we have a page form and we still keep the free text area, so that we try to capture as much as possible in the form itself to make it easier for people to enter information. It's formatted, they have lookup and function and so on, drop boxes. But we keep the text, the free text area for additional stuff, comments, descriptions, and the possibility to add local annotations that cover things that were not covered in the form.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I tend to think that information should always be stored via templates, but you may have a point. The problem with freeform annotations, and apologies to those who have no idea what either of us are talking about, but basically, you can define your data structure, and then within Semantic MediaWiki, you can say, well, this page also has these three other properties, and their values. But the problem there is if anyone can just make up whatever properties they want, it's not necessarily useful. If it's just a completely new property that's only found on one page, then it doesn't really help you. Unless you start adding that to other pages as well. But in that case, maybe you should be adding it to the actual data structure.
Yeah, we try to mitigate that with templates. So typically we would put those properties inside of a template that makes it
I
easier.
see, okay.
So we have a customized text editor, and for example, you would have if we identify a need for a particular exception, we can create a template that we can reuse when that exception comes up, using a template. So, one application to that, for example, is if we need to flag a page as this needs additional review, or something is wrong in this page. That's not something I would want to put in the form itself, that flag, but we could create a drop down option in the text editor to add a template that says flag this page for review, and then the properties is handled in the template. You don't have to see it, but it's something you do on certain pages. It's not something you would put in the form. So that's one example.
Okay.
One example.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Sure. Yeah. As long as you're using templates for anything, then you can definitely use Visual Editor. There won't be a problem there. You should look into it.
Yeah, look into it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. So, what's the usage for all of these wikis? I mean, does the average Johnson & Johnson employee know about them? Read them?
Use it. I mean, at the scale of a company like ours, it's usage is very low. But I'm okay with that. I'm looking regularly at what people are using it for. We have some analytics built in. We can look at sessions and what people, the different pages that people went through. I can see if somebody came in the wiki, searched for something and didn't find anything, or they found something and they clicked on it and then they went somewhere else. So I can trace all that. I can use that to find out what people are looking for. and then maybe create pages about it. My key, I'm not looking. What I'm trying to say here is that I'm not looking at traffic as a good indication of usefulness. I'm looking at are the people who come here to the wiki looking what they find what they were looking for. If those if the few who do come find what they are looking for, I'm good.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Because it takes a very long time for everybody to know about a particular wiki and then remember and come back and use it. So the word of mouth takes a very long time. And people come and go. People change functions, leave the company, come in. So it's a losing proposition to try to reach everybody.
Well, okay, yeah, but I mean, right. But if there's certain groups or departments or whatever it is that require information that's only found in the wiki, then it's a different story, of course.
Yeah, I'm looking at mostly public information inside J&J, so we don't have too much of that of particular information. So it's really more about making easier to find things elsewhere in the in our intranet.
I see. Okay.
Again, it's more of a catalog of where is what, and then people go and take care of it where it's supposed to be. But that's more of a central catalog to help figure out where things are.
Yeah, okay. It's, I guess, well, metadata is an overused word, but I guess you could call it metadata because you're pointing to where all the actual the real data stores are or something like that.
Yeah, a good example is policies or employee benefits. That's a very popular a very popular topic. Where can you get discounts? Where can you find out about vacation time or time off or things like that? Those things are dispersed in different places. So keeping track of where they are, and when a new policy comes in, we try to capture it so that we know where to send people.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's interesting. You sort of have two different jobs. You're in charge of emerging technologies and all that, and at the same time you're a sort of librarian for Johnson & Johnson, which I guess you're complaining takes up too much of your time.
That's something about the last example of wiki about technologies. That's somewhere where we've been successful so far at growing a community, at getting people to come and edit the wiki, at capturing that information and really grow that audience. But that's because we have people whose job is to go and contact different communities, get them engaged, and grow that wiki. We don't have that for the general purpose wiki yet, and that's going to it's going to take a very long time before that spontaneously emerge.
Okay. Is there anybody there whose job it is or could be to maintain that kind of do that kind of data maintenance?
Not yet, not at that level and that scope. Like I said, things tend to be very focused on a particular domain, or if the wiki was only about HR, I could find people to just focus on making sure that HR information is up to date. If it was only about IT, I could find people to do that too. But to do HR, IT, anything else, it involves people across functions from multiple areas in the world, and we don't have an organization that reaches everything that way.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. That's sort of like a CIO type, I guess, task, department level. I don't know.
CWO, Chief Wiki Officer.
Yes, that's what you need. And I guess you would prefer that it wouldn't be you, so that you could keep focusing on the more technology stuff.
Who knows?
Oh, okay, all right. Well, if anybody from Johnson & Johnson is listening, you need a CWO position. So, yeah. Were you gonna? Okay. So speaking of emerging technologies, what kind of stuff have you been looking into? I guess whether or not it's wiki related, just out of curiosity.
Wiki related. We've been looking at a lot of. It's not really. It's related a little bit. We've been looking at a lot of data problems, data management problems. You have a lot of areas in data management that are still very manual, like data curations, aligning, fixing problems in data, to merge data between different sources. It's still a very involved process that requires a lot of human expertise, and we've been looking at different vendors that can help us automate that. So part of that could be applied to wikis, but it's really more about how do we facilitate that kind of operation with data. Another example that's of interest is how you go to the next step in collecting information. So if you look at it from a wiki perspective, how do you identify missing links? Things that should have relationships between them, but are not currently captured in the wiki.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or how do you identify bad links, wrong links, things that are linked together that shouldn't be linked together? So to do more reasoning on those things, like if you say that New York City is located in the US, and another page says New York City is located in Germany. How do you detect that and flag it as there's a problem there? So do more reasoning, more consistency checks. That would be a good area of research too.
I remember people talking a lot about semantic web and reasoners and stuff, in 10 plus years ago. Is there still progress going on that front? I mean, I just haven't heard much about, the cutting edge, the semantic web stuff per se in a long time.
That's because some of that has been rebranded and is now being sold by vendors as knowledge graphs instead of semantic web.
That's so interesting.
If you want to see what's new in that area, look for information about knowledge graphs. That's the new buzzword there. But one example, I've seen several vendors go from. If you want to analyze text to do natural language processing, one of the typical operations is to extract entities from text. So look at text and see this word is about a company, this word is about a place, and identify that those two concepts, those two entities are in the text. So that's the first level. The next level would be to identify how are they related. It's not enough to say that they are in the same sentence, but to find out, to determine what is the relationship between those two. Like a company move their headquarters to this country. Move their headquarters is a relationship that links the company and the country. So right. How do you extract that relationship and build a knowledge graph out of that? So there's some vendors that are starting to get into that area where they don't look just at extracting concepts, but also extracting relationships and sometimes even data between those elements.
Yeah. Okay. Based on text analysis.
Yeah, based on text analysis and using context from other areas. That they accumulate very, very large knowledge graphs, and they use that to fill in the blanks. So that's the next phase, and I've seen some vendors starting to get into that domain.
Yeah. When you can combine that with data from wikis or other data sources and put everything into one knowledge graph, then
Yeah, that's something that I've been very interested in, is how do we enable both the automated stuff and the manual stuff, because a lot of information we are asking people to put in a wiki only exists in their head. It's not captured anywhere in particular, or maybe it's captured but in Word documents or PDFs or PowerPoints. So either you ask people to spend time and fill in the form in the wiki themselves manually, or you can try to harvest those Word documents or those PDFs for those relationships, and then put them into a triple store, or put them in the wiki as fields that were automatically harvested from somewhere instead of manually entered. So making the difference between what was automatically sourced in the wiki and what was manually entered is also something that I've been struggling, because sometimes, let's say we have a catalog of servers and databases, and we can query that catalog to create wiki pages automatically. That's great. But then if somebody comes in and change a description or change a field manually, how do you make sure that manual change persists the next time you refresh it from that external source?
Sure, yeah.
So that those collisions between manual edits and automatic edits is an area of interest, because that forces me to put the automated stuff outside of the wiki, so that the wiki can be focused only on the manual part of it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but then once you have the reasoning and you see that there are contradictions or something, then you have to.
Then you have to sort
do
it out.
Something. I don't know.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. So once you have this big data set, what can you do with it? Is it something that you want people to be able to browse for themselves, or do you, or just do data mining on it or something?
Visualize it. Visualize those relationships, not just as a graph, but other ways. Any type of visualizations to do queries on the data to find hidden relationships, or to find things that we didn't know were related and actually are. So there are, for example, you could, if you look at just at a system in the enterprise, you could have a system named a certain way and documented with certain databases in one corner, and the same system named another way, linked to other databases in another corner, and being able to say those two systems are actually the same. And now the databases on the left are actually connected to the databases on the right, because we only had partial views of that system. Now we have the more complete picture. So be able to merge that to make those links, or to another area that we've been looking at is to do impact analysis to predict how bad things are going to be if something goes down, for example. So if you can build a map of all those systems and how they're connected to each other and sending data to each other, you can simulate an outage. You can say, if this server goes down, what are all the cascading effects to that server going down? So you can use it that way. There are multiple use cases for this type of information.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff I'm very interested in, which is, just the figuring out the mechanics of data and, where is it? What can you do with it? How can you make it useful, legible? Yeah.
One thing I just remembered that's worth repeating is that there's a perception that triple stores and RDF is hard. It's the formatting is intimidating, even with simplified annotations. There is not a lot of general purpose applications that makes that easy to capture.
Right.
Semantic MediaWiki connected to a triple store makes that easier. It's a very simple way to edit the content of triple stores with a human front end.
Yeah. Yeah. But it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't handle, of course, the viewing the data or querying or viewing
in some way. You can use a semantic result format. You can do queries.
Well, yeah, sure, right.
Yeah, you can go a long way if you structure the data correctly by staying inside the wiki. But the rest, if you need something more, you have the triple store. You can build applications.
Yeah. No, right. Yeah, sorry, that it wasn't very clear what I was saying. But yeah, sure. If you, if the triple store, its main data source is the wiki, then of course it makes everything a lot easier. Both editing and viewing and all that. Yeah.
There are extensions too that can query the triple store inside the wiki and show results. Linked wiki is one.
Oh yeah, that's right. Right.
And we've been using that too to provide queries that are not possible out of the box with Ask queries. And
that's
provide
right.
them
right.
inside the wiki.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Okay, so you are using linked wiki. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I didn't know if it was still under development or still maintained, but I guess it definitely is. Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. And it works with Virtuoso. With any triple store.
So far, yeah.
Yeah. Have you done any MediaWiki development, by the way? I should know the answer to that, but I don't remember.
MediaWiki development, no.
Okay.
I've customized some extensions for certain fixes, but we never find the time to send them back to the community. So that's something we need to improve. I have some pending changes to send back to you for data transfer, for example.
Okay, cool.
But I never got around to better document them and to do a pull request. But I went as far as extracting them from GitHub and making the changes and merging them locally. So I need to do a pull request when I get a chance.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I remember we talked about data transfer a while ago. Yeah, it makes sense that that you're involved with that kind of thing.
But it's typically just to fix something that doesn't quite work the way we want. If we have a chance to go in there and find a quick solution, we do it. Otherwise, we try to find other ways because we don't have a lot of time to spend on fixing. So the first thing we do is work with people like yourself to have the original author fix it if it makes sense, and rather than us publishing the fix, because getting into the internals of an application like that's time consuming.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But sometimes we don't have a choice, and we have to do it. So, but then we have to do a better job at sending the result back to the author.
Yeah. Then it can become tricky. it's always strange to get a big patch from someone, and that's the first I hear about it, and not that you've done that clearly, but it's always good to communicate ahead of time. Just general advice, not for you specifically. Yeah, sure. That reminded me of something. I mean, that's most of my questions. I wonder, are there any? We've obviously talked about the strengths of MediaWiki and Semantic MediaWiki. Are there any weaknesses that you can think of? Any big things that it would be great if MediaWiki were better at?
For MediaWiki, I mentioned
the extensions.
Yeah, I mentioned the maintenance aspect, keeping track of all the versions that can be tricky. The biggest thing for us would be styling, create themes. One thing I would dream to be able to sponsor, to develop at some point is maybe some bridge between WordPress and MediaWiki, to have MediaWiki work in the backend to capture the information, and then use WordPress for the skin, for the additional publishing abilities, something like that. Being able to change the look and feel of the whole wiki is still tricky. I mean, we settle on certain skin. Right now, we've been using Chameleon as our main skin, because it uses Bootstrap, and we can go a long way with that. But it's still not as, it doesn't go as far as you can see in other platforms.
Okay. Being able to use WordPress skins in MediaWiki might be a challenge, but who knows? I mean, it's all just CSS ultimately, so you never know. Maybe it is possible. I
don't even know how that would work, but that's the kind of idea, is be able to style. If we could style the MediaWiki the same way you can style a WordPress, that would be good to really give a different experience to people. So that's another area. For the semantic part, I mentioned automating things, especially doing batch edits to pages, to certain properties in pages, and detecting when there are conflicts. There's still some progress there to make, to automate the creation of pages. That's still like if you have pages with templates with multiple values, comma separated values, being able to sort out adding a new value to that list, or without creating duplicates, or there's a lot of operations there to template operations for batch uploads. That's
interesting. Okay.
Better developed. We looked at bots to do that, but the bot frameworks come and go, and they fall in disrepair very quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that could be something that the data transfer extension could do better, and maybe that ties into the patches you were developing or something. But
and the last one that I mentioned before is being able to set properties outside of their pages. That's something I would see as a big improvement for the future of Semantic MediaWiki, is to find ways to expand the model of one page with all the properties as the central model.
Yeah. Okay. These are all really interesting. Usually people just say, being able to have better read access control. So these are
different
a lot more interesting than.
Well, that's another one that I just thought about is I'm not even sure if that's still in the platform. The idea of concepts, is that still there?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm not really an expert on Semantic MediaWiki stuff anymore, but I think so. Yeah.
Because the way I was seeing it, if there was a way to generalize the idea of concept as a collection of pages with different ways to build that collection, that would make them a lot more powerful. Because sometimes you just want a concept with a hard-coded list, like a days of the week. There's only a very small list. You can create a concept with that and hard-code that list. But sometimes you want to create a dynamic concept with a semantic query behind it. So being able to have different ways to populate that concept and use them as different lenses in your like dynamic categories or dynamic views of your content, that could open up a lot of possibilities. I'd be happy to discuss that more technically with anyone if anyone wants to drill down in that idea.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the Semantic MediaWiki conference is in a few weeks, so you may potentially be interested in joining that one. But of course, there's mailing lists and all that. Yeah. That's all really interesting stuff. And it's cool that it's getting this kind of usage. That the MediaWiki and Semantic MediaWiki are getting this kind of usage at Johnson and Johnson, and that there's still research and all that. There's still grounds for innovation and room for innovation. Okay. Anyway. Cool. Well, I think that's all my questions. It was great talking to you, Laurent. And thanks for coming on the program.
Yeah, great catching up with you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
And this has been another episode of Between the Brackets. I want to again thank my guest, Laurent Alquier of Johnson & Johnson. Thanks to all of you for listening. I hope you liked it. Stay productive, and I'll see you next time.